Hello and welcome back everyone. Today, we're looking at the major deities that formed the ancient Greek pantheon, the Olympian gods. The title Olympian comes from the fact that the gods chose Mount Olympus as their home following their victory over the Titans. At the peak of the mountain was a pantheon where the gods often argued over many issues. It was also the place where the throne of their leader, Zeus, was located. Following the Titanomachy, the great war between the Olympians and the Titans, resulting in Kronos' defeat and Zeus' rise to power, the Olympians became the highest form of authority on Earth. In this video, I'll review the most important Olympian gods and look at their origins, their role, and their importance in ancient Greece. Let's start with the goddess of love and procreation, Aphrodite. Aphrodite is a bit different compared to the rest of the Olympians, because the origin of her birth is quite different from the rest. In Hesiod's Theogony, Aphrodite was said to be born from the foam created by Uranus' genitals after being thrown in the sea by Kronos. Her name meant foam arisen, and she's often represented emerging from a seashell in classical paintings. Aphrodite was worshipped in classical Greece, mainly in the cities of Athens, Cyprus, and Corinth. She was regarded as the patron goddess of prostitutes, and the major symbols representing her included myrtles, roses, and swans. The goddess of love even had a festival in her name, called the Aphrodisia, where people will often purify the temple and worship sacred images of the goddess. The next Olympian is Apollo, mainly known as the god of music, but also of the sun, light, and prophecy. It's difficult to associate Apollo with a single role, because he was truly one of the most important and worshipped god in ancient Greece. Apollo was the son of Zeus and Leto, and he was born on the island of Delos. It was one of the most important islands for the Greeks, because it gave birth to light, and it was there that they worshipped the light-bringer god, Apollo. As I mentioned in a previous video, Apollo was said to be the leader of the 9 muses. They were goddesses that inspired arts, science, and music, and often accompanied him. One of Apollo's most important roles was to harness his 4-horse chariot and move the sun across the sky every single day to bring light to the world. Next is Ares, the god of war. He represented all the unpleasant aspects of battle, the raw violence and terrible acts that happened during war times in ancient Greece. He was the son of Zeus and Hera, and according to the poet Homer, both of them hated Ares, especially Zeus. They hated him because out of all the Olympians, Ares was the most arrogant, violent, and quarrelsome, but more importantly, he loved war more than anything else and was always bloodthirsty. He always wanted to trigger new wars for his own satisfaction. He was the lover of the goddess Aphrodite, even though she was already married. He even had a son with her, Eros, the god of love and desire. It was also said that the Amazon warriors were his daughters. Artemis was also the progeny of Zeus and Leto. She was Apollo's twin sister, and was therefore born on the island of Delos as well. She was primarily known as the goddess of the hunt, forests, and wildlife, but also as a goddess of childbirth, virginity, and as a patroness of hunters. She was often depicted in classical arts carrying a bow and arrows that were made by the god of the forge, Hephaestus, and the Cyclops. She was also often represented accompanied by a stag or a hunting dog. A temple was also built in her name, and was judged as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Temple of Artemis. Next was Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war. Unlike her male counterpart, Ares, Athena had a more strategic and heroic approach to war. Although mainly presented as a goddess of war, Athena was also associated with many other attributes, such as courage, strategic warfare, inspiration, and justice. Just like Aphrodite, Athena also had an unusual birth. According to the myth, Athena was born from Zeus alone after he got an unbearable headache. His skull was eventually cracked open by Hephaestus using a wedge, and from the wound, Athena emerged from Zeus's head in full armor. She was also known as a protector of civilized life. She was the goddess of the city, which is why her name was derived from Athenae, the name of the largest Greek city. The next Olympian was Hades, Although Hades isn't always present in the list of Olympian gods, I included him for this one, since I think he has a pretty big role in Greek mythology. Hades was the god of the dead and ruler of the underworld. He was also known as a god of wealth, and had the title the Rich One, since he was in possession of all the precious metals of the earth. Although an Olympian like his brothers and sisters, Hades preferred to stay in his kingdom in the underworld, where he had full control, rather than staying at Mount Olympus. He was the oldest son of the Titan Cronus and the Titanide Rhea, and just like his brothers Zeus and Poseidon, Hades was given a weapon by the Cyclops to defeat the Titans during the war. His was the Cap of Invisibility, a helmet that had the power to turn its wearer, well, invisible. Hephaestus was considered to be the god of fire, forges, and craftsmanship. He was a patron god of blacksmiths and forged some of the most powerful items and equipments in Greek mythology, such as the arrows of Eros, Artemis and Apollo, Heracles' armor, Helios' chariot, and of course, his greatest creation, Pandora. Contrary to the rest of the Olympians, Hephaestus was far from being as beautiful and perfect as all of them. He was considered to be the ugliest god, but was married to the most beautiful goddess, Aphrodite. It was Zeus that forced Aphrodite to marry the god of fire, to prevent a war between the rest of the gods that were all fighting for her hand. The ancient Greeks believed that it was Hephaestus that gave them knowledge on how to build temples and houses and how to create weapons and objects from metal. Hera was considered to be the queen of all the Olympian gods. She also represented marriage, woman, and conception. She was the youngest daughter of Cronus and Rhea, and was married to Zeus. Her symbol was a peacock, because just like her, the bird is beautiful, very proud, and vain. Hera was known for her jealous temperament. She often argued with Zeus over his frequent affairs, and usually severely punished the children born from it, such as Heracles. For this reason, the ancient Greeks knew Hera for her tendency to punish offending husbands that weren't loyal. Although Hera was worshipped in all parts of Greece, it was at Argos and Samos that the most important temples were built in her name. The next Olympian is Hermes. He was mainly depicted as a messenger of the gods, but was also seen as a god of commerce, eloquence, and the patron god of shepherds. Since Hermes was also the god of travel, boundaries, and transitions, he was attributed the ability to freely move between the different worlds very fast. This is why he was given the title of Messenger of the Gods. He could bring messages from Mount Olympus to Earth or the underworld extremely fast. It also helped that he had the talaria, the winged sandals made by Hephaestus, that enabled Hermes to travel faster than the swiftest bird. Next is Dionysus, mostly known as the god of wine, but also of festivity, ecstasy, religious rituals, and grape harvest. He was the son of Zeus and Semele, the Theban princess, and he was also the youngest Olympian god. In ancient Greece, Dionysus was often invoked by men during symposiums. Symposium, from the Greek word symposion, meant to drink together. After eating, men would often gather together drinking large amounts of wine and talking about poetry, politics, and society. It was only natural that Dionysus was often portrayed on amphoras and craters meant to hold and serve wine during these events. Demeter was a goddess associated with harvest and fertility. Together with Dionysus, they were considered as the primal gods of the earth. In ancient Greece, women would gather to celebrate Thesmophoria, a fertility festival in the name of Demeter. In one myth, when Demeter's daughter, Persephone, was abducted by Hades and brought to the underworld, the goddess of harvest was so sad and infuriated that the earth became barren, the crops wouldn't grow, and winter lasted in Greece until she reunited with her daughter. This might explain why the ancient Greeks often associated Demeter's personality and mood with the seasons, as it was a direct reflection of it. Poseidon was the Olympian representing the sea, storms, and earthquakes, and it was fitting for a god with such a bad-tempered and moody personality. Indeed, Poseidon was known to be very easy to irritate, and he was also very vengeful. For example, in one myth, Poseidon gifted King Minos a beautiful and strong bull that had to be sacrificed in his name, but the king liked the bull so much that he refused to sacrifice it, insulting Poseidon by doing so. To punish the king, Poseidon made Minos' wife, Pasiphae, fall in love with the animal. One thing led to another, and the end result was a minotaur. In ancient Greece, Poseidon was a patron god of sailors, and they often prayed for him and relied on him for a safe journey while they were on the sea. Finally, the last Olympian, the most powerful out of all the other gods and titled the king of the gods and father of all men, was Zeus, the god of the sky. As one of the most important, if not the most important figure from Greek mythology, it's only natural that Zeus held such power and authority. He had full control over the sky and had the ability to control lightning. It was after his victory over the terrible monster, Typhon, that Zeus solidified his reign as a leader of Olympus. Together with his brothers, Hades and Poseidon, they controlled the three realms of the sky, the sea, and the underworld. As the primal and most respected gods in ancient Greek mythology, it's only natural that the Olympians became such important and recognized figures in our modern era. Just by taking a look at some of the movies, novels, and shows that appeared in the past few years, we can see the influence it had on our lives. One of the reasons why Greek mythology is still so popular today is probably due to the fact that the myriad of fantastic stories we hear about all these gods gives us a romanticized view of what the ancient Greek culture was like. It also helps that most of the Olympians have their own flaws and are by no means perfect, which makes them even more relatable in return. So this concludes today's video. Thanks everyone for watching, I really appreciate it. Please make sure to share and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and don't hesitate to leave a comment below with suggestions for future videos. Thanks again, and see you next time for even more mythical content.